As I read your test aloud, your job is to listen and to annotate. Passage 1. Directions. Read the following passage and then answer the questions that follow. Excerpt from Keeping Score by Linda Sue Park. The thing was, Maggie didn't want to play baseball. Not because it was a boy thing. It wasn't anymore. There had been a real league for women during the war, and Maggie's best friend, Tracy, had once said that if they had the chance, girls could do anything boys could do, except pee standing up. Maggie had laughed both in shock and in admiration. She couldn't even think of things like that, much less bring herself to say them. To Maggie, it was a whole separate thing from playing the game yourself. Joey Mick might be able to tell you that Carl Furillo's batting average was around 300 and that Don Newcomb had won most of his games so far. But Maggie had it down cold. Furillo was batting a 304 and the Nuke had 6 wins. It was like the movies. You could go to the pictures every week, know all about the stars, read everything in the magazines, and still not want to be an actress yourself. Maggie's mother, Rose, was like that. She had told Maggie that when it came to New York from Ireland, she went to the pictures every chance she got, sometimes 3 or 4 times in a week. Mom was kind of solid around her middle now, with a few streaks of gray in her hair that Dad sometimes teased her about, his own hair being jet black. But her eyes were as blue as a calm sky, and her skin so clear that her face always looked like she had just washed it. Maggie could imagine a much younger Rose getting dressed up and going out for a good time. Baseball and the Dodgers were even bigger in the movies. You had to go to the movie theater to see a picture, but the radio with announcer Red Barber brought the bums right into Maggie's home. Into her street, too, so Maggie didn't mind running errands during a game. She would walk past the row of houses that looked just like hers, all built of dull brownish yellow brick, 1 window downstairs, 2 windows up, to Pinky the butcher, or Mr. and Mrs. Floyd at the bakery, or to the drugstore, or she wouldn't miss a single pitch. Everyone would have their radios on, and the sound of the game trailing in and out of each doorway like a long thread that tied the whole neighborhood together. The thread almost always led Maggie to the firehouse, her second home. When she and Joey Mick were younger, they would stop by often to visit Dad. He would give them little jobs to do, and with all the guys there, it was like having a bunch of favorite uncles to joke around with you anytime you wanted. They had spoiled her with piggyback rides and Hershey bars, and George gave her a bite of his sandwich, so that over the years, Maggie had developed a ferocious love of horseradish. He would hold out the sandwich, she would lean over and bite into it. Sometimes it was messy, like when her bite dislodged a whole slice of tomato, and it sort of dangled in front of her mouth until she managed to wolf it down. Once she even pulled out all the ham, leaving behind 2 empty pieces of bread. George had pretended to be mad at her. She was only 6 then, and for a few moments she had been scared that he really was mad, until he laughed. But best of all were the Dodgers games. Listening to the games and talking to the guys about baseball, it never mattered one bit that she was a girl who didn't play ball herself. A few days after the Pirates game, Maggie headed for the firehouse again. As she drew near, she cocked her head a little. She could hear the radio as usual, but Red's barber voice was being drowned out by the sound of boos and jeering. What was going on? Had Philadelphia scored? That couldn't be. It was Brooklyn's turn at bat. Terry and Vincent George were up out of their chairs, booing and hissing and jostling a 4th man, someone she didn't know. New guy? Maggie murmured to Tarky, who had lopped out to meet her. Hey, Maggie-o, George called out. Maggie saw that the new guy was built like her dad. Maybe not big all over the way her dad was, but tall and not skinny. You're just in time. You're not going to believe this. He pointed in an exaggerated motion at the new guy. Lots of muscles, a flat top haircut, dressed in the rest of them like the rest of them in blue. Younger than George, nice brown eyes. Then Maggie saw that George was really pointing at the radio at the new guy's feet. Not the firehouse's usual radio, which stood where it always did, at one side of the bay doors, but a smaller, newer one. What's he need another? Maggie started to ask, but the two radios themselves answered her. Red Barber's voice was all mixed up with someone else's, a different voice coming from the second radio. Maggie stared at the radio for a moment just to be sure. Then she looked at George because she couldn't quite bring herself to look at the new guy. That's right, Mags, a Giants fan, George jeered. Question 1. Based on paragraph 1, what is the difference between Tracy's and Maggie's personalities? A. While Tracy is bold, Maggie is timid. B. Tracy is loud and Maggie is quiet. C. Tracy is creative, but Maggie is unimaginative. D. Although Tracy is rude, Maggie is polite. Number 2. Read the sentence from paragraph 3. You could go to the pictures every week, know all about the stars, read everything in the magazines, and still not want to be an actress yourself. How does this sentence help the reader understand Maggie's point of view? A. It demonstrates why Maggie finds going to the pictures so boring. B. It contrasts Maggie's interests and passions with her mother's interests and passions. C. It helps explain why Maggie adores being a baseball fan, although she does not play baseball. D. It reveals why Maggie thinks that it is wrong for her to play baseball, but right to be a baseball fan. Number 3. The purpose of paragraph 7 is to A. Illustrate the close relationship that Maggie shares with George. B. Describe the setting of a firehouse and the typical activities Maggie does there. C. Reveal how Maggie has a stronger relationship with George than her own father. D. Show that Maggie does not completely trust George and is afraid of him. Number 4. Which statement best describes a theme of the story? A. Baseball is a sport that you can enjoy no matter what your age is. B. Enjoying a baseball game together can help people build a sense of community. C. A passion for baseball can bring together people who share nothing else in common. D. Baseball is even more important to American culture than the movies are. Number 5. Which detail from the story best supports your answer to question 4? A. To Maggie, being a fan was a whole separate thing than playing yourself. Paragraph 2. B. Baseball and the Dodgers were even bigger than the movies. Paragraph 5. C. Everyone would have their radios on, the sound of the game trailing in and out of each doorway like a long thread that tied the whole neighborhood together. Paragraph 5. D. Listening to the games and talking to the guys about baseball, it never mattered one bit that she was a girl who didn't play ball herself. Paragraph 8. Number 6. Read these sentences from paragraph 9. What was going on? Had Philadelphia scored? That couldn't be. It was Brooklyn's turn to bat. These sentences contribute to the development of the plot by A. Revealing background information that helps the reader understand the solution. B. Introducing new details about the setting that allow the reader to predict future events. C. Revealing new information that helps the reader understand Maggie's motivation. D. Showing Maggie's internal thoughts to help the reader to understand her perspective. Open-ended response. Directions. Compose your written answers for the open-ended response on the separate answer document provided. You may use this space for drafting purposes, but only the writing in the separate document will be scored. Answer the following question about keeping score. Number 7. How does Maggie's mood change at the end of the story? Use at least 2 details from the text to support your answer. Passage 2. Directions. Read the following passage and then answer the questions that follow. A Whole New Ballgame by Scholastic News Weekly Reader. In May 1943, Betsy Jochum arrived at Wrigley Field, the home of the Chicago Cubs. But she wasn't there to watch a baseball game. She and nearly 300 other women had been invited to try out for the first professional baseball league for women. Jochum had grown up playing softball in Cincinnati, Ohio. At the tryouts, she impressed the coaches with her speed, hitting, and fielding skills. Jochum was chosen to play for one of the new league's 4 teams, the Blue Sox of South Bend, Indiana. It was the greatest feeling in the world, says Jochum, now 97 years old. The new league came to be known as the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, AAGPBL. 75 years later, Jochum and the league's other players are remembered as pioneers for women in sports. A new league. During her first season with the Blue Sox, Jochum earned $50 per week. That was more than a lot of jobs paid back then. While growing up, she had never imagined that she'd get paid to play baseball. At that time, there were no pro sports leagues for women. In fact, women weren't considered for jobs in many industries. That started to change after the U.S. entered World War II in 1941. Millions of men joined the armed forces to fight overseas. That created a shortage of workers on the home front. Across the U.S., women stepped in to fill those jobs. The war also had a big effect on Major League Baseball. By 1943, more than half of the league's players had traded their baseball uniforms for military uniforms. This worried Philip K. Wrigley, the owner of the Chicago Cubs. With many of the top players gone, he thought Americans might lose interest in the sport often called the national pastime. That gave him the idea to start the AAGPBL. Wrigley hoped that women would keep baseball going, just as they were carrying on the work in offices, on farms, and in factories. Girls on the Diamond. Opening day for the AAGPBL was May 30th, 1943. At a small stadium in Rockford, Illinois, Jochum and the Blue Sox defeated the Rockford Peaches. At first, most people didn't take the Women's Baseball League seriously, but the players eventually won over many of the doubters with their talent. The fans didn't expect us to play that well until they saw us play, says Jochum. She earned the nickname Sock'em Jock'em for her hitting. Unlike male players, female players had to play while wearing shorts and a skirt. Also, players were expected to act ladylike at all times, both on the field and off. During the league's first 2 sessions, all the women were required to attend charm school. They were taught how to walk and talk like a lady, and even how to put on makeup. A lasting impact. The AAGPBL continued after the troops came home when World War II ended in 1945. The league's popularity reached its peak in 1948. More than 900,000 fans attended games that year. Jochum retired from baseball after that season. She used the money she had saved while playing to pay for college. She later became a teacher. In 1954, the AAGPBL came to an end. It had struggled to compete with Major League Baseball, which by then had started showing games on TV. Though the Women's League only lasted 12 seasons, it helped change people's attitudes about sports. They realized that women can play as well as the men, said Jochum. Number 8. Paragraphs 1 through 3 contribute to the article by A. Describing a player's experience trying out for the team and getting a spot. B. Explaining that it was very competitive to join the team and many girls failed. C. Showing how many women needed to be very talented to win a spot on the team. D, revealing all the different steps women had to take to audition for the team. Number 9, paragraph 7 develops a key idea by A, revealing how that all women's league was a last-minute decision. B, illustrating the many challenges women face when joining the league. C, demonstrating that Philip G. Wrigley was a champion of women's rights. D, explaining why Philip G. Wrigley started an all-female baseball league. Number 10, what is the meaning of the phrase carrying on as used in paragraph 7? A, moving around. B, taking over. C, refusing to help with. D, giving away. Number 11, what's the best summary of paragraph 10? A, unlike male baseball players, women players were expected to be polite and wear proper clothes. B, male baseball players did not have to follow the same rules as female baseball players. C, female baseball players had to wear special uniforms when they played baseball. D, both male and female baseball players had to attend classes to learn about good manners. Number 12, which detail best explains why the Women's Pro Baseball League ended? A, the AAGPBL continued after the troops came home when World War II ended in 1945. Paragraph 11. B, Jochum retired from baseball after that season. Paragraph 12. C, it had struggled to compete with Major League Baseball, which by then had started showing games on TV. Paragraph 13. D, though the women's league lasted only 12 seasons, it helped change people's attitudes about sports. Paragraph 13. Number 13, based on the text, with which statement would Betsy Jochum most likely agree? A, many women felt frustrated that they could not join the women's league. B, joining a baseball team was her main ambition in life from childhood. C, the end of the women's team was disappointing for the players. D, people only became fans of the women's team after seeing them play. Open-ended response. Directions. Compose your written answers for the open-ended response on the separate answer document provided. You may use this space for drafting purposes, but only the writing in the space answer document will be scored. Answer the following question about a whole new ballgame. Number 14. According to the text, why should the female professional baseball players be remembered as pioneers for women in sports? Use at least 2 details from the text to support your answer. Directions. Use both keeping score and a whole new baseball game to answer questions 15 and 16. Number 15. Which statement best describes how Maggie's feelings about baseball are different from Betsy Jochum's feelings? A, while Betsy only cares about making money as a player, Maggie loves everything about baseball. B, Maggie enjoys listening to baseball games while Betsy likes to watch games on TV. C, while Betsy is an excellent player, Maggie hates playing baseball because it's difficult. D, Maggie is a devoted baseball fan, while Betsy looks back on playing the game fondly. Number 16. With which statement would both Maggie and Betsy Jochum likely agree? A, the Women's Pro Baseball League should not have ended. B, to be a fan, you do not have to enjoy playing baseball. C, baseball has played a key role in their lives. D, playing baseball is a thrilling experience.